You've been apologizing for your growth through your behavior. You downplay a decision so someone else stays comfortable. You soften a change you've already earned because the person across from you hasn't caught up yet. And some part of you calls that compassion. This is a specific kind of self-betrayal. It wears the face of kindness and gets rewarded quietly in every room, where you make yourself smaller so the temperature doesn't change. You know the pattern. You've shifted. Something real happened. A boundary finally held, or you made a choice that cost you something and you're glad you paid it. That was real. You know it was real because it permanently changed what you're willing to accept. Then someone who knew the old you looked at you differently. They went quiet and got uncomfortable with a version of you they didn't ask for. And something in you reached for the old shape. That's the identity underneath this pattern, the one that learned a long time ago that keeping the peace was somehow your job. You decided love and belonging were conditional on how manageable you made yourself. That identity was built in a specific room for specific reasons. It was intelligent. You learned to read discomfort like a threat and neutralize it before it landed. For a long time, that kept the relationships intact, but it didn't keep you intact. I spent years of my professional life making my growth palatable. A new decision would come, and I would immediately start translating it for whoever was in the room. I was editing, filing the edges down so the people around me didn't have to feel the distance between where I was and where they were. I told myself, I'm just being considerate. I was actually refusing to inhabit my own changes. The person I was editing myself for didn't even ask me to. They didn't need me smaller. I just hadn't updated my contract. The managing, that's a tax. It is what the old identity agreed to pay in exchange for belonging. The problem? The new identity never agreed to those terms, and you've been paying on its behalf. When you stop managing, here's what it actually feels like. You're in a conversation with someone who knew you before. They reference the old version, the one that would have softened and carried the awkward silence until it resolved. And you don't reach for the old shape. You sit with the discomfort, theirs and yours, and you let it be what it is. You stay present. You stop translating yourself for people who aren't asking you to grow. Saying the true thing without a qualifier becomes your default. You make a choice and you don't spend the next 3 days managing how it landed. The relationships that survive that, the ones that can hold the newer version of you, feel different. They feel like room, like you can actually breathe inside them. They're built on something real. You simply became honest about who you're bringing into the room. Carry this today. Who in your life have you been editing yourself for, and when did you decide their comfort was more important than your truth? Sit with this. Don't rush through it. If this episode names something you've been doing for a long time without a word for it, that's exactly the work the no-cost identity clarity call is meant for. It's a conversation where we trace the tax back to the contract, and you decide whether you're still willing to pay it. You'll find a link in the show notes. On the next episode, it's going to require you to be honest with yourself. Be ready. With strength and heart, I'm Shawn Michael. Stay close. We spend a lot of time on this show talking about the threshold, the space between the identity that got you here and the one required for the new ground. You're listening to this because something in your current architecture is fracturing. You're running the performer playbook or the striver protocol, and it's costing you an immense amount of energy to maintain the facade. The external results are there, but the internal friction, it's burning you out. Most people will let this episode end and go right back into the performance. They'll put the mask back on for their next Zoom meeting and keep relying on the identity that's actively caging them. I'm looking for the leader who's done performing. If you're ready to look at the structural identity collapse happening beneath the surface, we need to map your architecture. Go to the link in the show notes, book your identity clarity call. We'll identify the exact survival identity running your calendar and begin the shift into conscious leadership. Stop performing, start becoming.